So is it fair to say, because it sounds like the way you're describing it, that because the lawsuit, because it was against NAR, was because NAR had policies or procedures in place that, I don't want to say dictated, but controlled that the compensation was coming from the seller's side, and now the sellers were saying, yeah, but I don't work with NAR. I'm working with my listing agent. It wasn't so much, say, the dollar amount or the percentage, whether it was 5 or 6 or 4.5. That wasn't it. It was just the principle of, why am I paying the buyer's agent?
Correct. Why are you negotiating with me for the buyer's agent compensation?
And anybody would explain it to them and just say, well, that's NAR's rules, and that's what we got to do in a roundabout
that's how
way.
we've always done it,
Yeah.
and the whole works. And so, yeah, that literally, it was just an antiquated system that its day had come. And of course, here we are in the early 2000s with, all this antitrust suits and breakups. And I mean, you go through all the industries, guys, or take a look at them. It's deja vu all over again, because, antitrust started back in 1896, and it was the early 1900s when all the big corporations and all the big monopolies were broken up. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Here we are 100 years later, we find ourselves in the same exact position.
Did any of that have to do with, because we, closings and talking to folks in the business, we were also hearing that, sometimes erroneously or incorrectly in a technical way, brokers agents would tell, or buyers agents would tell their buyers, you're not paying me. And so a lot of what they'd say is, in practicality, yes, but as far as my fee is concerned as an agent, but in reality, as a buyer, if you have a lender, then they would bring in the argument of, well, the sale price was higher, so you had to put more money down if that's what the lender required, based on a higher sale price, just because of the system, the way it was being run. And they would say, well, over time, you're paying more interest, and so it's not essentially correct to say you're not paying me. It's just you're not paying me directly. Is that
and essentially right? Because if under the old system, and here's how I analyze it: the ends have not changed, the means have changed.
Okay.
So now what do we have? We still have compensation for both the buyers and the sellers
in the same range that it's always
it's always been. But now we are negotiating individually with the seller for their side, and we are negotiating individually with the buyer for their side. And so add those together, you end up with the same amount, right?
Coming from the same side, but potentially it could come from the other side now.
Yeah. Well, but see, now I myself have always been a proponent, and this is where the industry really needs to make the effort to help the public understand that the ends are the same, the means are different, but the one end that should also be the same is that nobody should ever have to pay for this out of their pockets. I mean, the one nice thing about the previous scenario and the way it was set up is the compensation would always come out of the transaction. Well, that should not change even now. A lot of people will look at it and say, well, the seller paid the compensation. Yeah, but who brought in the money?
True.
So I was never a believer to state the fact that the seller paid the compensation. It was always paid by both parties. The seller took less than what they would get, right? Their net. And the buyers paid or brought the money in to pay for it.
Yes.
So both parties have a hand in this deal. So and even today, after all of this, I'm not real thrilled about some of the language that's in the agreements, which are written by the attorneys, by the way, who don't really have a vested interest in this anyways, where it says seller agrees to pay buyer broker's compensation, when in reality it should say something more like Seller agrees to allow buyer broker's compensation of so and so to be included in the transaction.
Okay.
And see, this is the way it's technically always been. But assigning who's paying for it when you have to look at a transaction as a whole, can you really say one party or the other? You can't. It's both parties as a collective group. And so I've always said everything should be in the contract, should be part of the agreement, and it's a yes, it's going to lower the net of the seller, but that's the way it's always been. The buyers are still going to have to come up with all the money to pay for all the expenses, including that compensation. And again, that compensation range is going to be in the same place it always was, because we've even though it was the trade association's rule, the individual businesses were competing against each other. So the fees that were charged got into the range of, it's called fair competition.
Yeah, whatever you're up against.
That's right.
If somebody says, I'll list it for 3%, and they say, well, geez, I talked to Bill or Mary down the street, and they said they do it for 2.5%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the 3%'s got a decision to make.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And show how they're going to provide better service or
their
do a
value
better job
proposition.
than that's right. Than that to do that. And so, but again, are we seeing like the 1% listing I was talking about before with Redfin and that type of stuff? No. Why? Because they already proved they need a caveat to make that work. So I can't stay in business and do that. So I will not expect compensation, the overall compensation, to change. The only thing that really did change with all of this is that the agents, how to get there. The agents need to directly negotiate with the parties to determine what they're going to get paid, and then also get that in writing, because again, contracts need to go.